spit. And just want to come and fill in up the front. I've often been asked by the Chief Talent Officer at the State Services Commission, how we encourage more Asian civil servants? And I've said it's obvious. What you do is you take the top Asian civil servants and you profile them. Because essentially what that explains is that you can be influential and you can have a great career in the public service. And of course the public service is so important. But before I start, can I please call on Naomi Ferguson, the Commissioner of Inland Revenue, who is kindly hosting you today for this event.
Ke akumanu tupawa, ke akumanu taku, tena koto katoa. Welcome today, welcome to me and our distinguished panel. I've certainly heard some of you speak before, so I'm looking forward to hearing that again and also hearing from others. Our discussion today is around flexibility, new approaches to old issues, the changing face of New Zealand and the opportunity that that brings all of us in the public sector and indeed more broadly to ensure that we support New Zealand and ensure it continues to be a fantastic place to live, a fantastic place to grow business, a fantastic place to bring up children. IR lives with those values every day as we think about our transformation, our future and how we continue to support the people of New Zealand. And we recognise that New Zealand is changing, that our customers are changing, and that indeed the people that we draw into the organisation to help deliver great service are changing. Within Inland Revenue, 14% of our staff are Māori, 7% are Pacific, and 70% are European, and 11% are Asian in our self-declared declarations of our histories. I think a few of us sometimes struggle though because there's a bit of good cross-cultural diversity and multiculturalism creeping into most of our lives. And so, you know, that talent pool shows you why this is an important subject for me. Increasing the flexibility and the diversity of this organisation to be able to meet the changing needs of New Zealand is really important, and I welcome the opportunity that we have today to discuss how, as key public service leaders and indeed as leaders across other industries, we can unlock the advantage that is there for New Zealand in the future. So welcome, enjoy lunch, and I'll hand over to May to introduce our panel.
Thank you so much. And can I start by saying that one of the departments that we've interviewed for the Super Diversity Stocktake is IRD. And it's particularly important what Naomi is saying, leading IRD, because IRD is one of those departments where it is so important that there is high social capital in New Zealand. If New Zealanders don't trust and respect IRD, then they will not pay tax. And the difficulty is that if they won't pay, it's very difficult to enforce. So it is important that IRD reflects New Zealanders, because that will assist with the trust process and the respect process. Many will come from countries where they don't pay tax, where there isn't necessarily a rule of law culture. So the more that an institution or an organisation reflects themselves, the more that they can see themselves in an organisation, the more trust they will have in that organisation. And that is by way of opening up the discussion for today. This is the third New Zealand Asian Leaders Asian Public Sector Forum. I can see many of you in the room who've been here for the first and second fora, and I know the reason why you come. It is the same reason why we hold these fora. The reason is because, hello Pam, just discreetly sneaking in the legal but the reason why we run these seminars is because you have a unique selling proposition. The public service needs what you have to bring. And that is reflected in the performance improvement framework. Let me read you just 2 questions from the PIF. 1, lead question 22, how well does the agency develop and maintain a diverse, highly committed and engaged workforce? And under diversity, the line of inquiry asked, how well does the agency encourage diverse ideas, cultures and thinking throughout the organisation? That sounds a lot like an interview we've just done with the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, where Andrew Kibawati is very keen to make sure that they've got innovative, diverse thinking. Another line of questioning, HIF lead question 18. How well does the agency anticipate and respond to future capability requirements? The lines of inquiry is, how well does the agency anticipate and plan for future capability requirements and workforce risks, and what approaches does the agency take to ensure that future capability risks are implemented and workforce risks are mitigated? So it's about being fit for the future. But of course that's only about internal capability. The external interface is with all New Zealanders as customers and citizens. And the question is how we are communicating with them at the moment. The Super Diversity stock take is that bit of paper you're probably sitting on at the moment. Don't sit on it, read it. And if you would be kind enough to respond to it, we will incorporate that in our stock take. The stock take is not focused on EEO. It is not focused on diversity. It is simply focused on super diversity, which is about ethnicity. And so the challenge today, why a public sector forum, 30 to 40% of the economy, I don't think we can be citizen-centric or customer-focused as a public service unless we have the contribution of the super diverse. I don't think it's enough to have interpreters. I think it's important to have people who understand the experience of the diverse, because New Zealand is probably undergoing some of the most fast-paced cultural evolution of any super diverse country in the world. And so in terms of understanding the culture and the psyche of the customers and citizens that you are trying to influence, regulate, benefit, help, it is important that Asian public officials are able to contribute not just their expertise, not just their experience, not just their technical competence, but also their understanding of culture and of values and of cultural intelligence. So the reason why we gather you together and will continue to do so twice a year is because you are Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point people. That's what you are. And so we need a critical mass of you so that you do feel able to express your different views, because your views will not be the same. Mine are not, because I was not born here. And increasingly, New Zealand, as you know, is already 50% Māori, Pacifica and Asian in Auckland, but that's not the statistic that floors me. What floors me is that by 2038, by Statistics New Zealand's projections, which came out in May of this year, 51% of New Zealand will be, it's 25 years' time, will be Asian, Māori, and then Pacifica. To now introduce you to Mervin Singham. Mervin has been doing this for a long time, because I've been reading in this area, and most of what I've been reading is his work. I have profound respect for what Mervin has done as the head of ethnic affairs. It's now the Office of Ethnic Communities, led by Mervin, and it's just doing some great work in this area. But what we need to see is all of this work throughout the public sector. And so today, we're going to be discussing some of those issues which are in the questionnaire, which you have. Rakesh, come and sit down. At the moment, by the way, in terms of the super diversity stock take, I have to say that police are probably number one. And so when you get the stock take, flip to the New Zealand Police, because they're doing some great things and you should emulate what they're trying to do. But look at the questions. What are the main challenges for the public sector as a whole, or in your public agency, in getting better results in terms of the PIF diversity measurements? What needs to change in the public sector as a whole, or in your agency, to secure better diversity outcomes? Do you have any suggestions? As to policies, mechanisms, approaches or law changes which could be adopted to help the entire sector or your agency develop internal capability to respond to the challenge, or the capability to engage externally with customers, clients or other members of the public? Do you have any other views on the unique contribution which Asian public servants can make? We're interested in engaging you today. This is not a hui, we're going to doey after this. And the doey is that we are going to summarise the contributions that you make, and we're going to send them to every public agency head to explain to them and to share with them the unique contribution that you have to make, because the things you have to say are good things. I'm going to pass this over to Mervin Singham, and Mervin, can I say I salute you and I congratulate you. You've been doing this work for many years. I'm lucky to be following in your footsteps.
Thank you very much, May, for that very generous introduction. Kia ora tātou, good afternoon, everyone. It's awesome to see so many people turn up today to the New Zealand Asian Leaders Public Sector Roundtable. I think the fact that there's so many of you here today is an indication of a recognition that this topic is something, this time has come. It's about time we had this kind of debate more frequently. So welcome also to our panel today. We've got a bunch of really distinguished senior public servants here as well, and I will introduce them to you very, very shortly. So the broad topic of today is diversity and inclusion and the dividend that it can create. So that's what we're here to talk about. And we want to unpack, as May said, we want to get into some doing, not just hui. We want to unpack by the end of this session some very practical, pragmatic things that the public service can do to lift our capability in this area. So hopefully we get to some actions. Round table, somebody asked me, public sector round table, that's an interesting idea. And that sort of took me to my childhood days in Malaysia, when my auntie used to take me to a Chinese restaurant every Friday afternoon. And one day I asked her, I said, Auntie, why do we always have a round table in these restaurants? And she said, it's because in Chinese culture, when you're having dinner together, there's no head of the table. Everyone is equal, everyone has an equal say. And for me, that metaphor is a very useful one for the topic that we're talking about today, because it is about equality and inclusion, and it's also about how we as an audience and panel participate together equal footing. All our ideas matter. So I think everyone will agree that diversity is one of the most compelling issues of our time. You can see it in the news all the time. And I think we're beginning to realize that we need to be a lot more deliberative about how we deal with managing our diversity. And there was a recent Wall Street Journal article which I was reading, and it was based on McKinsey & Company's recent research published just January this year. And I'll just quote, "Highly diverse companies appear to excel financially due to their talent recruitment efforts, strong customer orientation, increased employee satisfaction, and improved decision making." So there's a clear bottom line profit for businesses that tap into diversity. But we also know diversity can bring deficits. And if we're not careful, we play our cards wrong, if you like, then it can lead to some dire consequences that are less than desirable. And this image on the screen will remind us all of the dreadful tragedy of Charlie Hebdo in Paris recently. So the question is, does all of this affect New Zealand? We're a country in the South Pacific, small, some would say a little bit isolated. Are we affected by the same sort of dynamics? Well, I just want to tell you some established facts, and pardon me if I'm repeating something that you already know, but I think it's worth kind of restating. 1 in 4 New Zealanders are born overseas today, and in Auckland that's closer to 40%. So that's quite a huge change. By 2021, 13% of our population in New Zealand will be of Asian descent. That's just Asian, not adding African, Latin American, and so on as well. So today we speak 160 different languages, and our DNA has changed forever. In terms of trade, 2013 figures, we do exports to China to the value of $9.9 billion, India 669 million, and Malaysia 911 million. And that's where the future is going. May has spoken about this herself a number of times. That's where the future is going. So we all recognize this, right? We all kind of get that that's what's happening. But are we progressing in the right way? Are we taking the right steps? Some people think, yes, we are, but perhaps a bit too slowly. And I must say, I think I'm a little bit in that camp. We need a bit of momentum in this space. The private sector is making great progress in this area because they can see the vast fortunes that can be created by tapping into diversity. The public service is a question, how are we going in comparison? And some would argue that because, unlike private sector, citizens don't have a choice but to deal with government. They have no choice. So we have to be more exemplary in this area of dealing with diversity effectively. So the question that we are going to be probing is, are we doing enough? And what more can we do?
This is what I've taken from today, and this is what we will put in a letter to go to all public service heads. One, the private sector is actually going faster than the public sector. They don't have a monopoly. Their market share is shrinking. And so they're having to recruit from the market to service the market, and they have to think about different customers and different ways of servicing them. Secondly, we already have a diverse public service. What we need to do is be ambassadors in our own organisation. Thirdly, it's not just about diversity of race, it's about diversity of thinking. Many people know that they should do diversity, but they don't know why. The studies that we're undertaking for the Super Diversity Stocktake show you get greater innovation, greater productivity, and it's true that humans are tribal, as Tim said, but what that means is that if you want to be able to be citizen-centric, then you need to have people that look like your citizens in your organisation. Fourthly, it's not your colour that's important. I too am married to a pale, stale male. The question is, how open are you? Berlinda says that she feels very comfortable with people who don't look like her. Are you comfortable with that? That's what's important. Fifthly, the statistics show that Asian workers are congregating mainly in health and in IT. Sixthly, the connection is far deeper. As Pam was saying, as Debbie was saying, if someone looks like you, you have a greater affinity. And can I say, New Zealander Asian leaders happened because when I arrived in Auckland, all these Asians were in my boardroom saying they were being discriminated against, they were stuck in middle management, they were sick of going to talks about the future of China and New Zealand when there were 6 Pākehā speakers on stage, and they were sick of it. Now Ming is here, she's on the advisory board of New Zealand Asian Leaders. And the reason why I set up New Zealand Asian Leaders was because I couldn't deal with all of those people individually. And the organisation's taken off, but let me ask you, there are lots of Asian organisations. What is the difference? Actually, we are led by Asians, for Asians, and there's a consequence of that. The affinity and the trust is actually immediately there, and so the organisation has grown very quickly. Seventhly, we get sick of people telling us that all Asians look alike. If I have another person asking me whether I'm a chef, then it's very interesting. But similarly, when I talk to the Asians, they say, oh yeah, but you Westerners all look the same. So it's about depth of understanding of different people. Eighthly, the characteristics of your culture do have an impact on who you are. People often say to me, oh, you're just one of us, mate, I don't think of you as Chinese. Well, actually, I am. And as a consequence of that, sometimes I'm known to work quite hard. But to be honest, I'm a bit of a slow coach. You just got to see all the people back in Taiwan. Now they work. I'm just average. Ninthly, double disadvantage. I can always remember when Jeffrey Palmer retired from Chen Palmer, he said, May, when I first met you, I thought you could do anything. But now I realise that if you'd been a Chinese man or a white woman, you could have, but actually being a Chinese woman makes it too hard. So we are not going to accept that, even though I'm not 6'1". But it is important for us to focus on the double disadvantage. Tenthly, checking cultural bias in everything that we do, and I'm interested that you chose TCM because we're working on that at the moment to get it regulated. 11th, stereotyping against the public service. It's the parents often that you need to convince to let their children come into the public service, but the role models are behind me of the great career you can have. 12th point, real expertise, real credibility means that you need to have people who do understand when you are fronting them for dealing with foreign governments. The 13th point, savings. What are you recruiting for? Because many people, as I say, already have language, they already have culture, they already have CQ. It's just that you're not recruiting for it. 14th point, people who can operate comfortably, flexibly, adaptively, who have cultural agility. 15th point, Eliza Doolittle. She needed training. And for many of us as immigrants, we need more help than other people. If I hadn't had people explain public law to me, I could not have become a public law expert. Why? It's not written in books. If you're an immigrant, you have to read it. If you can't read it, you don't know it, because your parents can't teach you, and it's quite difficult to understand the culture. It's about having people who can crack the code and help you become an insider. The 16th point, how do we learn from Auckland's journey for the rest of New Zealand? Next point, it's about having Asian leadership at all levels, not just in the bottom half. I love Mervin's point, which is next point. We should aim in the public service to allow you to come to work and be comfortable in your own skin and not have to put on another face when you walk through the door. And then finally, we're not going to get progress unless we identify it, we measure it. And that's why we are doing the super diversity stocktake. I've written a letter to every public service CEO and I've asked to come and talk to them about what their department is doing with respect to super diversity. Most people have asked me to define it. Super diversity means 25% or more of the population not born in the country and over 100 ethnicities. Belinda tells me we have 217 ethnicities. 44% of Aucklanders now were not born in this country, 1 in 4 New Zealanders. So, can I say, please, could you see Karunia if you want to remain involved? In terms of what we have next, I've just met this morning with a wonderful person at New Zealand Police. We are trying to bring to Wellington all of New Zealand's top Asian media that communicate with Asian New Zealanders. We did the session last week. That was about business and customers. But actually, you need to communicate with them also as citizens. And so I think that's one way we can add value. The next session is sponsored by Fonterra on how you can best communicate food safety messages to Asian New Zealanders. And then after that, we've got Vodafone sponsoring an Asian TED conference. We've got 20 Asians who are hot, sexy and cool. And they will get 8 minutes to pitch an idea from their area of expertise. That will be in Auckland. I hope some of you can join us. If you've enjoyed what's happened today, please get involved in New Zealand Asian Leaders. At the end of the day, it's all about us. Thank you.
Hi there. Very much so, because going back in time when I was fully in well, I'll get one thing. Yeah, me too. Oh no. Oh yes, yes. I gave him my details previously.
Yeah, even some practical things like that, they're very helpful.